You may have seen the news yesterday that Disney have just signed a huge new contract with our area's very own Pinewood Studios. Now, on the one hand, this means that our area will continue, of course, to play an important role in the making of huge franchises like the Marvel superhero films. On the other hand, what will this actually mean for homegrown British films? Basically, Disney's going to start making more blockbusters at Pinewood as a result of this deal, which sees them take over most of the studio complex for at least the next decade. Let's have a word with film industry expert and film critic James Luxford now. What do you make of this, James? I mean, first of all, how expected was this, I suppose?
I think the news is unexpected, but if you know Disney, this is very much in character. You know, they couldn't compete with Pixar, so they bought Pixar. They couldn't compete with Marvel, so they bought Marvel. They couldn't compete with Star Wars, they bought Star Wars. They tend to consume anything that could sort of make them a big empire, and with the arrival of Disney Plus, which is their equivalent of Netflix, they are going to need to produce a lot of content, so it makes an awful lot of sense.
Well, what's the appeal of Pinewood to Disney in particular, do you think?
I think it's a legendary studio. It's got incredible facilities. I mean, from a technical standpoint, the British industry really leads the way. You've got the crews and the generations now of people who have trained on the biggest movies imaginable, going all the way back to the original Star Wars movies and then through to Harry Potter. Things like Fast and the Furious are filmed here. There is just a wealth of experience, and Pinewood has a legacy, and it's also quite near to Central London's huge effects warehouses. We actually lead the way in special effects, and it just makes sense, really.
Does this mean then that production at Pinewood is now going to be dominated by Disney-related films?
Absolutely, I think so. I mean, I'm sure they could maybe sublet, but with the sheer amount of content they have to make, they've got a load of new series they're going to make for Disney Plus. They've got however many years of Marvel movies. They've got Star Wars spin-offs. They're going to become a content factory, and we've seen this over in Atlanta, which was Marvel's kind of base in the US, which is it's this hub of constant blockbusters and TV shows and anything Disney related. And of course, they now own the Fox back catalogue of movies, so that who knows, maybe future Alien films. But there's the possibilities around this, and I think they need quite literally a factory to churn out these movies.
But that does then beg the question about what happens to the British films that were being made at Pinewood, because presumably now they're not going to get a look in.
Yes, I mean, it depends what you mean by a British film, because if you're talking something like Bond, that's owned by Sony, which is a Japanese company. But yes, absolutely, British-made, British-focused films may be pushed out, including Bond, which was obviously historically the home of the 007 series, has a 007 stage, I believe, and I think I don't know. I think this is a symptom more than the cause. We've always sort of struggled to keep up with Hollywood, and I think this is just another sign of that.
What's the alternative, though? If these British films can't actually be made at Pinewood, what are the other alternatives if they want to stay in the UK?
I think there's a lot more films being made on location. There's a lot more of Britain's resources being used. You've got the Hobbs and Shaw using a power station in North Yorkshire. I think maybe you're going to see more, physical locations rather than sound stages being used by smaller budget films.
Interesting stuff. James, thank you. That's film critic and film industry expert James Luxford on that news that Disney is going to start making more blockbusters at Pinewood Studios. It's coming up to 11:45.